Hello guys, once again it's Matt and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons. Make sure to subscribe and let's get into it. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about the Su-15 guys, the Sukhoi Su-15, a very famous aircraft and infamous at the same time, but still Soviet interceptor from the 60s, right? It was actually made to substitute the older Su-11s and Su-9s. Especially the Su-9s, right? And it was basically substituted by the MiG-25 later and even MiG-31, right? So yeah, very, very interesting aircraft, and I really want this aircraft in the in War Thunder, and I really don't understand why it's not added yet. I mean, we had everything. It's not like, oh my god, the Soviet Union suffers. No, I'm not saying that, okay? I'm not saying that, but it was weird that this part of the Soviet interceptors are kind of left out. I know they are kind of problematic to be added sometimes due to not having a cannon, and it becomes a big problem that everybody talks about it. But the performance is there, and the aircraft are amazing, and I really think that with some specific variants in mind, these interceptors can be added. The first that I wanted to talk about, I already talked a lot about the MiG-25, right? I wanted to talk about the Su-15. So what is the Su-15? As I said, it is an interceptor from the 60s, entered in production service around 1965, 66. And it was basically serving a purpose for the PVO as it did the MiG-25 later, and the MiG-31 even later than that. It was basically for intercepting, more specifically the bombers, but anything entering in the Soviet Air Force, airspace, Jesus Christ. And yeah, basically that's it. It is a very old aircraft, so the BR would be lower than what we are accustomed with new additions lately. But yeah, the performance of it is amazing. It actually has two MiG-21 engines. It is an aircraft that has the initially used for the time the R11s, if I'm not mistaken, which is the initial MiG-21's engines, and they were kind of lacking a little bit. The R11 is a weaker engine. But later they got the R13 F300, which is the good old engine of the MiG-21 MF or SMT. All of these aircraft use the R13 MiG-21S in War Thunder. So yeah, around 70 kilonewtons of power with afterburner, so around 140. You know, so it's a strong aircraft. And initially it had the same type of wing design that we see in the J8, okay? So that delta, kind of really delta wing, straight. But later, he actually got a wing very similar to the J7E, if you know. So a double delta wing, they normally are called, right? So improving maneuverability and stuff. So it is supposed to be a very precise and maneuverable aircraft, at the same time as being a very fast interceptor. And especially these later variants with the R13 and with the double delta wing, they are like very good at maneuverability and also power. So yeah, very, very cool. If you compare it to the, for example, the J8, because it is an aircraft that kind of looks like it, you would have around 10 kilonewtons more of power, more or less, than that, and having the double delta wing. So it is a fast aircraft. It could even get to like 2,500, but normally it would be like 2,200, 2,300 kilometers per hour of max speed, Mach 2.1, 2.2, so very fast. The rate of climb is around 230 meters per second, so very similar to something like the MiG-23 MLD of climb. So yeah, the performance of it is amazing. It really is amazing, and it is going to be one of those aircraft that it probably attracts a lot of people just due to that. Then we have the sensors. After all, it is an interceptor aircraft. First, it got the Oriol RP-11 radar, which was a kind of a bad one. I mean, it was around 30 kilometers against a head-on, in a head-on against a fighter, and 35, 40 kilometers maybe for a bomber. So the range initially was pretty bad. But I mean, it was just a very old radar, right? It's 1965. I mean, come on, right? It is similar to something like an APQ 100 or something like that. I don't know. And later it got the better Typhoon radar, the RP-26, which is a radar that was basically developed from this merge radar from the MiG-25P. So, but basically having a little bit less performance. So it is basically the same radar, but with a smaller dish. So around 70 kilometers of range against bombers and 55 against fighters. It would be around the same as the radar on the MLD, for example. So as you see, it is a very good radar, if you ask me. I mean, it doesn't have any type of look down modes, so that's the main problem with this radar. But I mean, 55 kilometers for a fighter is the same range as you get from a MiG-23. So it is, of course, a very large radar, and for open spaces, it is a very good radar. Of course, these aircraft wouldn't be too high of a BR anyway, so it would be, of course, a lower BR. Low altitude detections are really bad, like 12 kilometers for bombers and 10 for fighters. So for low altitude, it really is not a look-down radar. It is a 60s design developed to intercepting targets high, so there is that, right? So yeah, this is the main thing. And then the weapons that we can talk about are very fun as well. The weapons that we have, it depends on the variant. I couldn't actually 100% confirm the variants and stuff if they ever get everything, so I will talk about the two variants first that I think should be in game, like right now. And I don't know if one of them would be an event or premium, I don't care, but these two variants I think it would be kind of cool to see. And I will talk about the weapons that these aircraft should have. So initially, I mean, we have 4 variants of the Su-15. The original one from 1960, I mean, combat ones. I'm not talking about trainers or prototypes, right? We aren't like later models that never got produced. The first production model, Su-15, from 1965-66. Then we have from 1969 the extended wingtips version. They started using it. It's just called Su-15 as well. Then the Su-15T, because it was the first one that actually got to use the Typhoon radar. So pretty cool. Around the same era there, 1970, something like that. And then we have the latest variant, the Su-15TM, which is the latest variant with the Typhoon M radar and additional aerodynamic modifications used since 1971. So yeah, just overall the latest model. I couldn't actually confirm if we can actually use the UPK 23mm gun pod on the earlier models. They say that late models used that gun pod. We don't know if it's the 1969 version, 1970, or the later 1971 version. What I mean is that we don't know exactly what version is that, but that's the main thing. Because without a gun pod, this aircraft would be very limited. Initially, until like the TM version, or even the T, can't remember, we would still have only 2 missiles to be used, okay? So initially it is a very just interceptor kind of idea behind it. So it kind of doesn't have a place in game, right? So what I mean is that we need an earlier variant that has the gun pod at least. So that way you can actually use the missiles that we're going to talk about, 2 of them, and the gun pods, which would be fine for something like a 9.3, 9.7, maybe 10.0, or something along those lines, right? Maybe 9.3 is too little, 9.7 to 10.3, depending on how the performance would be like. And yeah, the gun pod's 23mm, nothing else to say, no flares or anything like that, as far as I know. And yeah, the missiles would be basically the I mean, we have many missiles, but initially it is the R98. It is basically an early 60s missile that was developed from the original R8s and other missiles, you know, and it is a very limited missile, to be honest, but still it's like those missiles that you will see in this BR. So missiles that basically turn 14 Gs, not a very much, right? 24 kilometers of range, or I mean, it should be a little bit less with the earlier variants. So yeah, with an IR version and a radar version, with the IR version being all aspect. So the earlier version of the Su-15 would have these 2 of these missiles, a radar and 1 IR, or both radar or both IR, and the gun pod. So we could use it to intercept high altitude targets, but you can also use the IR versions to actually try to get people down below. Missiles don't turn too much, but still it can be used. And then obviously the cannon would be the main weapon as well. So yeah, if the cannon can be added to that. And then the later model, or just a suggestion that I would do, is the Su-15 TM, right? Which is the latest model, 1971. It had all the major upgrades, so it has the best Typhoon radar ever, additional aerodynamic modifications, new radome, you know, so yeah. And the cool factor about the TM is that it can actually carry a lot of missiles. It can actually carry two R98Ms, which are just better versions of the original R98s. It's difficult to confirm if they remained with the same G loads, but if they did, it is 14 Gs, not very good as well, but still, it is an earlier missile, with a range of, as I said, 20 to 30 kilometers. So the range is pretty alright, all aspect version for the T variant, and just overall a medium missile. It would be like an AIM-7E, AIM-7D, or something, R-23, something along those lines, right? It wouldn't be too amazing, but nothing too bad as well. But the cool part is that it can also carry, obviously, the gun pods, but also the R-60s. It can actually carry R-60s, and later, after 1975, or whenever they actually got the missile for the squadrons, they actually used the R-70, the R-60M as well. So it can be even, depending on the performance of these BVR missiles, or maybe without that, but with just the performance of the aircraft itself. Like I said, the TM would have the wingtips that would turn a lot, the increase in power, the better radar with 70 kilometers in range, 55 for fighters. It could be a very good 11.0, or maybe without the R60Ms, a 10.7 or something like that. So yeah, it would be a very cool aircraft, very different design from what we see in game. I mean, the J8 is very much like the Su-15, and I don't understand why we didn't have the Su-15. We don't have a lot of interceptors for the Soviet Union, and it's just kind of sad. I mean, where is the Yak-25, the 28P, the Su-9? Maybe the Su-11 you can skip it over, but still Su-11, or skip one of these, but the Su, because they are very similar, I mean, the Su-9, Su-11, Su-15, all the variants of the Su-15, MiG-25s, and then later, of course, the MiG-31. So there's a lot of aircraft to be added like this, and yes, it would be a different gameplay style, but it would be still fun. It doesn't have to be all light fighters in the game, right? And it would be just very, very cool to see. So hopefully it's added. The TM version would be very cool to see it like 11.0 with R60Ms, just like the MiG-23 AMIs. They are basically from the same era, right? So it would be very, very cool. And hopefully it's added. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about the Su-15. Do you want it to be in the game or not? And I see you guys on the next one. Bye. See ya.